So here I am, my dear Ceausescu nostalgic compatriot. How are you? I kind of look kind of young, right? Like a kid who wasn't around in 1989. I was actually 26 at the time, Navy reservist. I was working in Constanza Harbor, and when that whole revolution thing happened, I was called back to duty and actually manned a checkpoint, gate number 5, Constanza Harbor. I was there for a week looking for Ceausescu, who people were saying he was trying to escape. So this is me, 55 years old, next month. I live in the United States since 1998. So I apologize because I kind of forgot some Romanian words, and sometimes I think in Romanian I speak in English, I speak in Romanian, and I think in English. So when I said we couldn't find feminine hygiene items like tampons, I was actually thinking at vata or cotton wool, but I was writing in English, which is tampons. So you caught me. You are a very good detective, Chief Inspector Clouseau. Same thing with the baby formula. We didn't had baby formula. That's true. People were using powder milk, but when I think about powder milk, lapte praf, actually the first words are coming out of my mouth because I live in the United States for so long. The first word that is coming is baby formula, not powder milk. Okay, because here nobody is giving newborns powder milk. Everybody gives them formula. So again, brain fart. But hey, you caught me. You kind of caught me. I wasn't around when all that happened. So let me tell you about things that I lived through. My grandfather was a kabur, or one of those filthy rich peasants. Okay, had a couple of acres of land, a convenience store, and they arrested him and they put him in prison. Okay, my father ran away, and he lived under an assumed name for 12 years, basically 12 or 14 years, and was adopted by his aunt and changed his name. So this is why I actually have a different last name that of my real name that I should have had if communism didn't happen. About the things, the good things Ceausescu did, and that affected directly my family. My grandfather, as I said, did years in prison because he was, as I said, he was kabur. And as a matter of fact, I had an uncle who told me how the collectivization happened. He was, at the time, in the 1950s, I believe, he was one of Ceausescu's personal bodyguards, okay? And he actually witnessed firsthand how Ceausescu gathered people from a village, about 60 people from a village, and he ordered their executions because they didn't want to give up their animals and their lands. And when the soldiers hesitated, he took up his Tokarev pistol that he was wearing, and he personally shot the first peasant in the head. This is first-hand account from my uncle, um, who was at the time a major in the Romanian army, and he was one of Ceausescu's bodyguards. Couple of weeks after he resigned from his job, and he became actually a merchant marine sailor. His first job that he learned as a young man, he was a carpenter. So he went and the rest of his life he was just a sailor. He worked carpentry on a ship. I think it was called Bucharest, and then the second one I remember when I was a kid, it was called Brashov. So yeah, I have the first-hand account of how nice of a guy Ceausescu was. The Russian independence that he played, because whenever I hear people like you, not very bright people, I have to say, and I'm sorry to tell you this in your face, Ceausescu played this card of so-called independence from the Soviets for a very simple reason. The West had a technology embargo, high technology embargo for Russia, for the Soviet Union and all the countries in the Warsaw Pact, among them Romania. Ceausescu was actually coached by the Russians to play the independent, the rebel card. And as a consequence, he actually inked a couple of deals with the West, among them the BAC, the airplane, the passenger airplane program, the French helicopter Puma, which Romania used for the military. And at the time when he signed the contract, the Puma helicopters were top of the line, one of the best in the world. The French and the Western countries wouldn't have given the Russians or anybody in the West that technology. But they gave it to Ceausescu because he was the bad boy, the guy who didn't listen to the Russians. Well, my dear Ceausescu admirer, he wasn't like that. Ceausescu passed all the technology that he got from the West, he gave it to the Russians. Okay, this is how Russians build a good part of their military, with the stolen technology. And Ceausescu was one of the guys who got it from them. You said that Ceausescu did only what he could, and the situation in Romania deteriorated in the 1980s because of the OPEC embargo, the OPEC situation. And this is why the Romania went into crisis, economic crisis, and all the stuff that I and all my other compatriots, maybe not you, maybe you were just, you were one of the guys who didn't had to endure what we did, because as everybody knows, the party leaders and their families, they didn't have to put up with what we put. They had their own little private closed circuits, grocery stores, their own places where they could buy whatever they wanted, but not for the rest of us. So since you seem to love Ceausescu, to find excuses for him, maybe you are one of those people that actually didn't went through what the rest of us went through. So that might be an explanation. I don't know. It's just a hypothesis that probably needs to be looked into. Anyway, about the crisis being, the economic crisis being caused by the OPEC oil crisis, Ceausescu didn't have any fault. That's what you say, right? Well, the OPEC crisis started in 1973 or 1974, not in during the 1980s. Okay, that's when it started. That's when OPEC they started the embargo to oil embargo to the United States. It was another oil crisis in 1979 generated by the Iran-Iraq war. Saddam versus the new Iranian mullah regime. That didn't last but a year, and they started putting oil on the market again. So by the 1981, 1982, everything, the oil prices already were starting going down worldwide. If you don't believe me, check it out. I mean, you have Google, you can look in it for yourself. Okay. And one more thing that I wanted to tell you is, you know what? When you say that Ceausescu did, he was not a good guy, but he also did good things for the Romanian people. You know why? What reminds me of? It reminds me of another dictator, and I hear people saying that, you know, after all, Hitler wasn't that bad, right? Because he built the Autobahn, and German people had jobs. No? Same thing with Ceausescu. We didn't got it so bad. It could have been worse, right? Hey, he was forced to do what he did to us, Ceausescu. Okay, just like Hitler. But Hitler built freeways, and the German has jobs. So did us. We built a lot of factories producing nothing, and you know, we kind of starved, and we kind of lived in fear, and we kind of had the relatives arrested and killed. But you know, he did it for our good. So think about that. Okay? Have a good one. La revedere.